I'm going to need your badge, Dana. That was it. No greeting, no thanks. Just those 6 words sliding out of his mouth like gum already chewed to death. And there he was, Landon Pierce, the new VP of Product Innovation, or whatever the hell LinkedIn peacocks were calling themselves this year. Fresh haircut, skinny tie, and that smug tech bro smile that screamed I just discovered PowerPoint. We were in the 3rd-floor glass coffin the company called the Innovation Hub corporate code for no walls, no privacy, and air so thin you could choke on your own anxiety. My laptop was still open, code window alive, cursor blinking mid-deploy on a hotfix that would have patched a latency bug before tomorrow's investor livestream. But sure, let's talk about my transition. Next to Landon sat an HR phantom named Cheryl with the emotional range of a deactivated Roomba. She recited her lines like a robot in a bad indie film. Due to restructuring, your role has been deemed redundant. Redundant. After 11 years architecting the AI backbone of this circus, I was now a redundancy, like a fax machine, like a dusty paperclip. Landon didn't even bother to hide the glee. "You're talented, Dana. I'm sure you'll land on your feet," he said, tugging at the cuff of his overpriced shirt like his wrist had a sponsorship deal. That was the moment, not when they said I was out. Not even when Cheryl slid the severance envelope across the glass like it might bite her. No, it was when Landon leaned in, all cologne and counterfeit empathy, and said, "We'll be fine without you." Something inside me clicked into place quiet, surgical. I smiled. A sharp, polite smile that could have cut through his Bluetooth headset. I unpinned my badge, placed it gently on the table, and said almost tenderly, "Then you can inform the investors why your live demo vanishes in 8 minutes, including the Q&A. Silence. The kind that sucks the oxygen out of a room. Cheryl froze mid-scroll. Landon chuckled brittle. "Is that a threat?" I didn't answer. I just turned, calm as a metronome, and walked out. No slamming doors, no theatrics, just the sound of my own footsteps echoing through the corridor like a timer starting. By the time I reached the elevator, my face was neutral again, that strange, peaceful calm you get when a thunderstorm finally flattens the fence you never had time to fix. I pulled out my phone. One notification blinked on the corner of the screen. Admin session. Active. 47 minutes remaining. Landon didn't ask how our proprietary AI assistant worked. None of them ever did. That was his first mistake. Because the live investor demo tomorrow, the voice assistant, the auto-synced deck, the smart Q&A bot that made our startup look 10 years ahead wasn't running on the main company servers. No, it was running on a private sandbox server I built myself. Firewalled, token-locked, authenticated with biometric keys tied to me. Not because I didn't trust the company, because I'd been here long enough to know exactly how things end when a new VP walks in with a buzzword and a god complex. You don't survive 11 years in tech without a contingency plan. And mine was already humming. The elevator doors slid shut. My reflection stared back tired eyes, faint smile. I adjusted my blazer, took one long breath, and whispered, "Let's see how fine you are without me." Outside, the sky was sharp with winter light. Cars moved like slow thoughts across the parking lot. I unlocked my beat-up Corolla, tossed the envelope on the passenger seat, and checked my phone again. Session timer, 44 minutes. That's how long Landon had before the most expensive demo of his career imploded in front of 30 investors, the same demo powered entirely by a system that lived on my private architecture. I started the engine. The dashboard light flickered to life. Somewhere across town, a server in my name blinked awake, waiting for one last instruction. This was no meltdown. This was choreography. It started years ago, back when the company was still a garage with delusions of grandeur. No fancy espresso machine, no neon mission statement on the wall, just 5 of us, surviving on bad pizza and the promise of stock options that might one day be worth a pair of shoes. Back then, They called me the engineer who didn't sleep. I built the framework from the ground up, the natural language parser, the predictive model, the neural stack that could interpret tone like a therapist on Red Bull. The early prototype barely ran, but it was ours. It learned, it adapted, and I named it Eos after the Greek goddess of dawn. Because back then, it felt like one. Now, 11 years later, Eos wasn't just code. It was the heartbeat of the company, the reason investors showed up, the reason Landon even had a job. And yet, to him, I was just another expense line to be trimmed. I could still remember our last late-night conversation, 2 weeks before the firing. Landon had wandered into the dev floor, pretending to care about innovation while sipping something green and overpriced. He leaned against my desk like a tourist in a museum, eyes glued to the glowing code on my monitor. "This is cute," he said, smirking. "But don't you think it's a little over-engineered?" I didn't even look up. Failover routines, sync logic, encryption layers. You know, the things that keep the lights on. He chuckled, spinning the spare office chair like a bored child. "Nobody cares how it works, Dana. They care that it looks shiny on the slide deck and doesn't explode during the live stream." I wanted to ask if he'd ever built anything that worked longer than his ego did. Instead, I saved my work, tagged the latest build, EOS/V9, Final Clean, and minimized the window. "It's modular," I said, meaning it runs perfectly fine even if someone forgets to approve the right deployment credentials. He didn't catch the subtext. Of course he didn't. Landon never read between the lines, only off the teleprompter. When he finally left, I took a long look at the terminal, then at the encrypted build sitting quietly on my drive. Not the version synced to the company servers. That one was for show. The real one was already uploaded to a private VPS in Iceland, under my LLC, firewalled behind 2 layers of authentication. It started as a safety net, but somewhere along the line, it became something else: insurance. You learn fast in this industry. Trust is a currency, and management spends it faster than coffee budgets. So you plan for betrayal the way you plan for deployment failures, not if, but when. That's why I kept EOS separate. No mirror instances, no shared tokens, no dependency trees that pointed back to HQ. The entire demo pipeline, the Q&A module, the auto-slide sync, the voice assistant lived entirely inside my walled garden. It wasn't paranoia. It was survival. The night before they canned me, I stayed late. The office was empty, humming with that weird electricity of after-hours quiet. I remember staring at the code, watching the console flicker like a heartbeat. Test suite completed, 99.1% accuracy. EES was perfect, finally. After a decade of sleepless nights, burned weekends, and too many lukewarm coffees, she was ready. And then I heard footsteps. Landon again, smelling like expensive wine and entitlement. He circled my desk, hands in pockets, scanning the lines of code like he could understand a word of it. "Make sure your team has a rollback plan," he said. I didn't look up. "I am the team." He laughed, that short, sharp kind that sounds like a door slamming shut. "Good one." When he left, I tagged the final build, timestamped it, encrypted it, and uploaded the mirror image to the Iceland server. Then I deleted all but one access path, mine. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was self-preservation. Because people like Landon never learn until the system stops answering their commands. The next morning, he called it streamlining. HR called it restructuring. I called it predictable. And now, as my car idled in the parking lot, the session clock ticked down to 39 minutes, and somewhere in the glass tower behind me, Landon Pierce still had no idea that the demo keeping his career alive was breathing borrowed air. Friday, 9:32 a.m. The office smelled like printer toner, burnt coffee, and denial. I'd been gone less than a day, but the silence already felt heavier, like the walls knew what was coming. Across town, I sat in a corner booth at the halfway bar, a dive wedged between a pawn shop and a tax service. It was the kind of place where daylight came to die. I ordered a whiskey sour before my coat hit the seat and opened my laptop. Admin session. Active, 2347 remaining. The green digits pulsed like a heartbeat. I could almost feel the hum of the server through the screen, a quiet mechanical breath that only I could hear. Back at HQ, Landon was probably practicing his visionary grin in front of a mirror, gearing up for the investor live stream. 30 investors, a camera crew, and an AI demo that made him look like the second coming of Jobs. Except the system was running on my sandbox, and the timer was counting down. I sipped my drink, staring at the console window. My reflection glimmered faintly on the glass calm, distant. You'd never guess that in less than half an hour, an entire department's credibility would vanish. The bartender slid another napkin my way. Rough morning? I smiled. Not for me. Meanwhile, in that glass tower across the street, chaos was about to start in 3, 2, environment not found. That's what the first alert said. Somewhere inside the product lab, an engineer named Gabe stared at the terminal like it had personally betrayed him. He tried again. Same message. Sync failed. Q&A module offline. Gabe's supervisor, Nina, leaned over his shoulder, tapping furiously. Check the mirror repo. The one from last night. There isn't one, Gabe said. What do you mean there isn't one? Who ran the deployment? Dana did. Silence. At 9:36, I took another slow sip of whiskey. The ice clicked against the glass like a metronome. My phone buzzed once, unknown number. I ignored it. Another buzz, then 2 more. The notifications began stacking like dominoes. From Nina. Hey, weird question. Where did you store the AI node keys? From Gabe. The demo's not syncing. Any chance you touched the tokens? From HR Cheryl. We'd love to schedule an exit debrief. I laughed. Out loud this time. The bartender glanced over. Good news? He asked. The best kind. Admin session. 1628 remaining. By 9:40, the live stream was rolling. Cameras on, suits straightened, investors smiling through caffeine and greed. Landon stepped up to the mic, grinning like a man who believed his own press release. Thank you all for joining us today. We're thrilled to showcase our proprietary AI suite, seamless, intelligent, and fully autonomous. He said it like he'd coded it himself, like he hadn't just watched me do it for a decade. Slide 1 loaded perfectly. The voice assistant, EOS, chirped its opening line. Welcome and thank you for your interest in... Then it stopped. Mid-sentence. A single frozen word hung in the air like a glitching prayer. One investor raised an eyebrow. Another tapped his pen against his notepad. Just a little hiccup, Landon said, forcing a chuckle. Our engineers are making some minor adjustments on the back end. Cut to back end. Engineers shouting. Nina frantically typing. Gabe sweating. VPN's dead. We can't find the build logs. Where the hell is the backup? At 9:44, I ordered a second drink. The bartender didn't even ask. My console glowed faintly, the clock ticking down in hypnotic green. Admin session. 10:03 remaining. Across the street, the show was unraveling in real time. Slides were flipping out of order. The AI stopped responding. The demo stream froze on Landon's perfectly moisturized face mid-word. Midly, his expression caught somewhere between confidence and horror. I almost felt bad. Almost. Then the session timer blinked again. 08 Hone Ka. 07:59. 8 minutes. That's all it would take for the entire facade to collapse. I lifted my glass toward the building across the street, as if toasting a funeral. To redundancy, I whispered. Then I took a drink. 10 a.m. Sharp. Inside the glass tower, 30 investors leaned toward their screens like worshippers waiting for revelation. The slide deck glowed, the air crackled, and Landon stood center stage, all polished confidence and empty brilliance. Across the street, in my corner booth at the halfway bar, I refreshed the console. Admin session, 0447 remaining. Showtime. EOS began the demo again, her voice crisp through the speakers. Welcome and thank you for your interest in. Then, silence. Not static, not noise, just an abyss. The kind of silence that makes people look at each other, searching for someone to blame. On screen, Landon smiled too hard. Small glitch, he said, that fake laugh sliding off him like sweat. Our engineers are just, syncing the back end. Except the back end was gone. Behind the scenes, the product team was unraveling like a cheap sweater. Gabe pounded on his keyboard. Server's not responding. Check the logs. There are no logs. Nina's voice rose. Try the mirror instance. There's no mirror instance. Every attempt brought another red error message. Environment not found. Access denied. Credential mismatch. By 10:03, the AI interface had frozen mid-sentence. Slide 2 advanced without permission. Slide 3 stalled completely. The voice feed flickered, pixelating into a single still frame of Landon, mid-blink, mouth open, eyes wide. You could practically smell the panic through the fiber optics. I stirred the cherry in my glass. And, cue chaos, I murmured. At 10:04, Landon started sweating through his perfect white shirt. Just a few minor adjustments, he said to the investors, his voice cracking like an overplayed record. Our tech team is resolving a latency issue. Latency issue. Cute. Latency implies there's still a signal. Meanwhile, the CTO, Harold Denton, a man I once trusted before he turned my code into PowerPoint slides, was pacing the floor like a caged animal. He leaned into Gabe's screen, whispering something furious. We can't find the server. Who hosted the final build? Gabe hesitated. Dana did. That was the moment Harold's face went pale, a kind of sickly realization that only happens when you finally recognize the shape of your own mistake. At 10:05, my phone buzzed. Harold. Dana, where's the demo environment? Harold. We need your access now. Harold. CEO is in the room. I didn't reply. I just tilted the glass, watching the golden liquid catch the light. Admin session. 0231 remaining. Another alert flickered on the console, not from me, but from them. Someone was trying to brute force the lockout. I smiled. The security protocol I'd written was airtight. 3 failed attempts, and the system didn't just block the IP, it buried the logs and wiped the local cache. I'd spent months designing that trap, because you never leave your masterpiece where amateurs can touch it. Across the street, one investor leaned toward his webcam. Are we still live? He asked, his voice faintly picked up on the open mic. Another replied, Did the AI just stop talking? Then, one by one, the investors' faces started to vanish from the call. Click, click, disconnect. By 10:06, the live stream was a disaster. The slides had desynced entirely. My EOS had gone silent. No crash messages, no polite errors, just digital oblivion, the kind that screams louder than any alarm. In the bar mirror, I watched the reflection of the muted broadcast feed from my phone. Landon's mouth was still open mid-sentence. The CTO stood behind him, whispering urgently. The head of PR looked like someone had just informed her the company's obituary was printing live. Then my console flickered once. Session expired. Server console locked. Access revoked. I exhaled slowly. There it was, the quiet heartbeat of finality. The system didn't explode. It didn't scream. It simply stopped existing. By the time Landon realized, it was already gone. I set my glass down and smiled faintly. The bartender caught my look. You just win something? Something like that, I said. Then I raised the glass again, not to celebrate, but to mark the passing of a system that worked flawlessly, until the wrong hands touched it. In the distance, the company's sign glimmered in the sunlight, flickering once like a dying bulb, and across the bar, my phone buzzed one last time. CEO. Call me. Now. I didn't. 10:10 a.m. The stream had gone dark. No outro, no fade to black, just silence, static, and 30 very expensive investors realizing they'd been watching an implosion in real time. Across the street, I sat in my booth, finishing the last sip of my whiskey. The ice had melted into something clear and harmless. The same couldn't be said for them. My console window was blank now. Session closed. Logs cleared. No trace. It was beautiful. Clean. Like a crime scene washed by rain. A man 2 stools down at the bar asked the bartender to turn the TV back to sports. He didn't know that the real game had already ended, and I'd just won. My phone buzzed again. From CEO, Private, Dana, please call me. From CEO, Private. We need to recover the demo immediately. No punctuation in that last one. Always a good sign. I set the phone face down on the table, let it vibrate itself tired, and ordered fries. Behind my calm exterior, there was no chaos, no guilt. Just clarity, the kind that comes when someone who underestimated you finally gets their day of reckoning. By 10:20, the PR team had tried to do damage control. I watched the company's official Twitter post crawl across my feed. We experienced temporary connectivity issues during our AI showcase. Our team is resolving it and rescheduling the demo soon. It got ratioed within minutes. One investor replied with a gif of a dumpster fire. Another wrote, "You call this innovation?" A third simply posted the now viral freeze frame of Landon's face mid-sentence, eyes wide, mouth open like a man trying to inhale his own failure. Someone had already captioned it, "When the cloud drifts away." By 10:40, it had 500,000 views. The bartender came by with my plate. "Bad day at work?" he joked. "Not mine," I said, picking up a fry. Meanwhile, in that glass tower, things were unraveling. HR was calling legal. Legal was calling PR. PR was calling IT. And it was calling me. Harold, CTO. "We're in full crisis mode. Please respond." Nina. "They're threatening to cancel the investor round." HR. Cheryl. "If you could just help transition the environment." It was like listening to an orchestra play my favorite symphony one, where every instrument was on fire. Then came the best message yet. From Mallory Shaw, EVP of Strategic Ops. Subject, urgent. Please call me. Mallory. The same woman who once told me, "Dana, your work's too technical for the board to understand." Now she needed me like oxygen. I didn't open the email right away. Instead, I rewatched the final 10 seconds of the investor feed someone had leaked online. Landon's mouth frozen mid-word. Harold whispering to someone off screen. The PR director looking seconds away from tears. Perfection. Then the next email came in. "Mallory, we need to recover the environment. Name your rate. CEO approved. Discretion guaranteed." I paused on that line. Name your rate. 3 words that turned corporate arrogance into corporate repentance. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I typed, deleted, typed again, then settled on one sentence. Depends. Is Landon still grinning? Send. No sign-off. No pleasantries. Just precision. By noon, I'd received 5 more emails, 3 texts, and a voicemail from legal asking if we could amicably negotiate temporary access. I ignored them all. I wasn't in a rush. I wanted them to sit in it to hear the echo of their own dismissal and realize I had been the quiet heartbeat under their empire. I looked out the window. The building across the street still shimmered like a mirage, the glass panels reflecting blue sky and panic. That's when it hit me. This wasn't revenge. Not really. It was symmetry. They'd cut me out of the company I'd built. And now they were learning, in real time, what happens when you remove the architect, but keep the house. The house collapses. I checked the clock, 11:58 a.m. The messages had slowed. The panic was settling into silence. Silence I had designed. Monday, 11:59 a.m. 3 days after the demo imploded, every inbox in Silicon Valley lit up with a new link. AI Showcase 2.0 with consultant. They tried to dress it up as a strategic partnership relaunch, but everyone knew what it was, a digital olive branch dipped in desperation. At 12 p.m. sharp, the live stream went live again. The company's logo flickered, then steadied. And there I was, front and center, hair down, navy blazer crisp, camera framed perfectly. No trembling hands, no fake smile, just quiet control. "Good afternoon," I said. "Let's begin?" Behind me, Eos hummed to life. Her voice, my voice, really flowed through the speakers, smooth as silk and twice as sharp. The slides snapped in perfect rhythm. The Q&A interface pulsed with light, ready and waiting. Everything worked exactly as it was supposed to, because this time, it was mine. Across hundreds of investor screens, heads tilted forward. I could feel it, that shift in the air, when competence walks back into the room after chaos has been evicted. While I explained EOS's adaptive sentiment matrix, I caught sight of something subtle in the lower corner of the demo overlay. A watermark, small but deliberate. Powered by Dana Systems, LLC. I hadn't asked permission. I didn't need to. The irony was delicious. They'd fired me on Friday. By Monday, I was billing them at triple my old salary under my own company name. And Landon? Nowhere to be seen. I scrolled through the participant list mid-presentation. No L. Pierce, no VP Product Innovation. Just the CEO, the board, and 30 investors who'd seen the first crash and wanted proof that their money hadn't turned to ash. At 12:08, while I was walking them through EOS's compliance logic, how it adjusted tone based on client profile, how it handled sentiment under pressure, a flicker caught my eye on the security console. Internal access report. Keycard deactivated. Pierce, Landon. I didn't pause. I didn't smirk. I just kept talking. So, with sentiment-aware phrasing, we ensure responses maintain legal compliance while preserving brand personality. Any questions? One investor chuckled through his mic. Might have been the CEO. Hard to tell. The presentation rolled on flawlessly. EOS handled every question like a diplomat referencing CRM data, cross-validating metrics, even injecting polite humor where appropriate. It wasn't just software anymore. It was art. At 12:21, the CEO joined the call, smiling that too tight smile of a man pretending everything was planned. We're proud to announce that Dana, founder of Dana Systems, will be advising us directly for the next 18 months as part of a long-term strategic partnership. He didn't look left, didn't look right, because there was no Landon to glance at, and we thank Landon Pierce for his service, he added, the corporate equivalent of a eulogy. He'll be pursuing new opportunities outside the organization. The investors nodded, smiling politely. They knew. Everyone knew. I leaned slightly toward the camera, steady, calm. Thank you, I said. Now, let's conclude with EOS demonstrating real-time adaptive response. The AI spoke again, her voice clear and confident. Thank you for your time. We look forward to shaping the future together. Flawless. Silence followed, not awkward this time, but reverent. The kind that happens when an audience realizes the person they underestimated was holding the detonator the whole time. When the CEO finally spoke, his tone had softened. Outstanding work, Dana. Truly remarkable. Thank you, I replied. It performs best when trusted. The demo ended. The feed cut cleanly. I sat back in my chair, exhaled, and let the quiet settle. My reflection stared back at me from the monitor. Same face. New power. They had tried to erase me. Instead, they rebranded me. Across the bottom of the archived stream, the watermark shimmered again. Small, but eternal. Powered by Dana Systems, LLC.